Hello and welcome to the preview show for the Fort William World Cup, which is coming up on Saturday and Sunday. I've been wanting to do these sort of podcast things for a while, so here goes my attempt at doing some. I want to do one for each World Cup and try and do 3 videos over the weekend, so like a preview, a qualifying / semi-final rundown on the Saturday or Friday evening, depending on what day the World Cup's on. So essentially, like, if you don't want to watch the semi-final, you can find out what happens, and then just tune in for the final. And then like an analysis video, like what I'd really like to do, depending on whether it is allowed on YouTube, is sort of get some clips, short clips from the winning runs of both the men's and the women's. Maybe we'll do juniors, but I think we'll probably just do men's and women's elite. And sort of like analyse where it went good and where it went bad, well, not necessarily went bad. If it's the winning run, it probably didn't go bad, it probably went really good, but where it went good and why said person won. So I hope you can tune in and join this journey into podcasting for me. If the videos go well and everything, we might do some other stuff in between as well, because I've got other stuff that I'd like to talk about that would be really cool too. But for a minute, we're just going to focus on doing the World Cup stuff. So, Fort William 2024, new bits to talk about initially. So, if you have watched the video that Adam Brayson made of the track, you'll have seen that not only is it starting out of the cafe, which I know they talked about doing last year. So this goes into the whole thing of whether Discovery are trying to shorten tracks so that they can get it all in one shot, at least for the top 10 men and top 5 women, so they can film the whole track in one go. Obviously that doesn't work very well at Fort William, and we can go into why that sucked when they tried to do that last year for World Champs in a minute. But yeah, so the start ramp sort of comes off that balcony that you often see people stood on by the first hip jump at the start. So that's going to be quite interesting. So that will get rid of that sort of like bumpy start that they always had, where they sort of had to sort of go left or right of those. There's like a small section of rocks, and you always saw it at the camera that pointed at the start hut, and whether they went to the left or to the right, I mean, it didn't make any difference, but it was always a bit weird that they never sort of sorted that section out. But yeah, coming in from there, it's going to give them quite a bit of speed into those first corners, which would be quite interesting. But it does take the hip out as well, and the hip was always quite cool. I think riding that jump as well was quite good fun back in the day. So yeah, it's a shame that that's missing. But yeah, and then coming out of the woods, so obviously they changed quite a lot. And when I say come out of the woods, I mean the bottom, right at the bottom of the woods, properly coming out of the woods, not after the road gap. If you watched the race last year, you'll have seen they changed quite a lot of the stuff after the road gap. So they took out that massive wall ride and just put in a tabletop jump that seemed to be difficult to clear, because there were quite a lot of people that weren't clearing it. And then instead of going straight towards the hazard hoofer, they had like a jump into a left-hand berm. Well, it wasn't really supposed to be a jump into a left-hand berm, but everyone's cutting the corner. But now that's going to go around that corner off the hazard hoofer into that next wall ride, and then not go over the stump gap anymore. So it used to have a stump gap that was quite difficult to clear, that they made easier last year, that then went into that left-hand corner with the like weird gridded bit on that Matt Walker crashed on at the World Champs last year. But it seems to be going to the left of that now. Well, it is going to the left of that now, off like a boardwalk kicker that's going to send them straight into that bridge that's like a tabletop that sometimes people jump and sometimes people don't, but they'll actually be able to jump it this year because they're going to have loads of speed probably. So it'll get rid of that uphill section, which I don't know about what you would think, but I think kind of takes away the that cool thing about Fort William where people can be down by about 2 seconds but then can come back in the last motorway section and take the win. That's like how Greg Minnaar won definitely in 2008 and 2009, but he's like done it every year because he just knows how to balance the run there and, like, you know, not go mad at the top to be able to then have some energy for the bottom. And I feel like that, I mean, that might take that away if it's not got that little uphill in it, because I feel like that little uphill made all the difference. You know, who could sprint off that that metal bridge and up that hill best, and then get a good run into the motorway. But yeah, so that'll be interesting to see. It's nice to have new bits. I just feel like tracks get straightened out a lot these days, and it might be the sort of grizzled old mountain biker in me, but I don't like how bike parky lots of stuff is becoming, particularly Fort William. You know, going and watching World Champs last year at the venue, like seeing it live and walking down the track and seeing a lot of the berms in the top, and how they're all these sort of like new school bike park turns where they're like really packed in well, so they did rut up, but like so they're just really solid and they don't go anywhere, and it kind of ruined it, I think, a bit, and it feels really weird for a track that's rough like Fort William to be going, oh, let's have smooth corners. So yeah, I think all the tracks are becoming too bike parky these days, and that's kind of where mountain biking is going, unfortunately, for a lot of us that like the more technical aspect of it. As long as they keep tracks on the circuit like Ludenville was last year that are quite natural, I think it's fine. And to be honest, Fort William's fast anyway, and it's going to be fast whatever the way like bikes are these days, the way people are riding stuff. So I think it doesn't really matter. They're going to be going fast anyway. But yeah, be interesting to see how that goes. There's also a new grandstand this year, so I think the grandstand is the same size. In my mind, the grandstand that they always have at the end is always twice as big as I think it is, but then when you actually look at it, it's not as big. So I looked at it and I thought, oh, they've taken half the grandstand and put it next to the finish area, but they've actually kept the same grandstand and put a new one to the right of the finish area, like rider's right as you're coming down the track. Which I think is really cool. I think that's going to make the atmosphere really interesting. Obviously it takes away like some standing space potentially for people, but I don't think you could really stand in that area anyway, so it's kind of like, it looks like it's literally right by the finish line. I did look at a picture a few days ago now, so I can't remember where it was, but yeah, I think for people there that'll make it really, really good, and a really good atmosphere at the end for the riders as well, like even more big than normal. I mean, I think in my mind it would be really cool to almost like have that whole area like surrounded by a grandstand, like a bit of a gap, so that people can like stand there almost like a concert in a way, like, you know, having like a mosh pit, and then having the stands behind for seating, and I think that would make it really cool. Obviously it's quite expensive to do that, and they probably might not have the room, but like that would be what I think would be amazing for Fort William, because it's already like a, you know, like a cauldron at the end, and it's like the best atmosphere of any finish area, and certainly like when you go and you stand there, it's like otherworldly compared to watching it on TV. But on that note, talk about filming and how it was filmed last year. I didn't watch much of it, partly because I was there watching it, and I normally, the last load times that I've gone and seen it, I then come home and watched it afterwards, because you pretty much watch all of it, especially if you go to the bottom and watch it on the big screen, which is the best place in my opinion to watch it from, so you can see what's happening and see the reactions of all the crowd and everyone, and you'll sort of feel like you're one big audience watching it on a TV, which always feels really cool. And then seeing them sort of like, you're watching them on the screen as they come down the motorway and they go over the big, well, it's not actually that big, but the step down at the end, the TSO step down as it used to be, and then you see them up on the hill. It's always really cool. But yeah, I normally watch when I come home, but I sort of started watching the juniors. I think they showed the juniors properly. If it wasn't the juniors, it would have been the women. But that drone shot they had of the top section, you couldn't see what's happening. So I don't mind their use of drones. I feel like they've done a few that are a bit dodgy this year. The one that sticks out particularly is Leger. The Leger in that sort of tight woods where you go past the lake, and it's that next section. I feel like that's quite cool, a cool section. And whilst the drone gives you that sort of feeling of the speed of how fast they're going, you can't see what they're doing. So I felt like that was a pretty poor decision. But it's nowhere near as bad as the Fort William one. You know, they basically were just having a massive long shot of the entire top section. I think they filmed up to the first boardwalk. Did they even film that far? And then from there, it was just one drone shot all the way down. And it's such a wide open top section that you can get cameras, and the cameras before they've had have got really good zooms in them. So you like, if you had that first rock garden after the boardwalk and turn, you can see quite a long way down, and then one more further down you can see another long section. Like, you don't need the drone there. I think they need to, yeah, hopefully they don't have that, because watching that's going to be absolutely awful, and it's almost going to be not even worth watching. So yeah, let's hope they do something different with that. But then, yeah, moving on to history, just a quick sort of like what's happened before. So standout Fort William races, 2005, Steve Peat winning, so the first British man to win at Fort William, because Tracy Moseley, I think, won the year before. Did she win the year before that as well? She might have won the year before that as well. She won quite a lot the first few, but that was when like Steve Peat was at his best, and he probably should have won 3 World Cup overalls and maybe a World Championships in that time, maybe 2 World Championships in that time. And that was, I think that was always when he was at his best, and it was riding as good as he could have been. So yeah, I mean, him coming back from injury that year, and he rode in Pila, which is the race before, and Worlds, but he didn't. He wasn't quite back to form yet, and then to come to Fort William and take the win, it's pretty special. So yeah, that one. World Champs, the first World Champs there in 2007 was again pretty good. Sam Hill taking the win on that one in the men's, and Springy Johnny in the women's. Rory Cunningham as well, taking a junior men's win. I have no idea who won the junior women's. It's something that really isn't well documented. I mean, I could look it up and find out, but I'm just thinking about these things off the top of my head. And then like Minar's wins have always been pretty special as well. Like I mentioned earlier about how he's done it from going from like quite often being down at the last split and then pulling like 2 seconds, particularly I think like 2008 and 2009. One of those, I think 2009, he pulled like 2 seconds over Sam Hill at the bottom, and you could say there's an obvious reason for that, of Sam Hill being flat pedals and not having the power on that kind of section that Greg Minnaar would have. And was that the old motorway? That might have been the old motorway as well. That would have been the old motorway in 2009, so before it went over the jumps, and it had that horrible, like almost trail centre style pedal down what is now the side of the motorway. But yeah, so most wins at Fort William. Greg Minnaar's got 7, Tracy Moseley's got 6. Next person with the most wins is Amory Piron, I think, with 3. I can't think of anyone else who's won it more. Oh, Rachel might have won it more than that. But it's got to be similar. Rachel could have won it like 3 or 4 times. So last year it was Worlds. Charlie Hatton and Valley Hole taking the elite men's and women's win. The Charlie Hatton win was amazing. Slightly weather affected maybe. I think Bruni would have had the win with everything being equal. So it was windy at the top, and that was causing a lot of issues. And then like so wet at the bottom. It was such a weird day, and the fact that like I sat through some of the women's wearing shorts and then was wearing waterproofs by the time the men's came on, and was absolutely drenched. It was like going through my waterproofs, it was that much rain. But here's my interesting Fort William fact. So I'm going to try and do an interesting fact per video of these, and some of these are going to be hard to find more than others. There's some really cool ones coming up later in the year. But my interesting Fort William fact is, I think, and well, I know because I've looked back at it, Charlie Hatton is the first person to ever become world champion without ever getting a World Cup podium. So there's people that have won world. Oh, did I look at Morgan Shaw? I think I did look at Morgan Shaw, and I think she did win a world. She did get a World Cup podium before she won world champs. I think she did, because I think I thought about this at the time. But definitely the first elite man to win world champs before getting a World Cup podium, which is pretty cool, and pretty like a weird one as well. I think his best result was like a 7th, like back I think like 2015, 2016 when he was on Intense. Yeah, like we've had like Reece Wilson and Loic Bruni win world champs before without having won a World Cup. But both of those have now got, well, obviously Loic Bruni has, but like Reece has gone on to win a World Cup. He won Snowshoe in 2021. Probably would have dominated the 2020 season really without the crash, but that's why he's such a cool rider, is that like he does like give it his all. And, you know, he's had loads of injuries, but generally the riders, it's like a Piron, the riders have had loads of injuries, are the riders that ride at 100%. Right, let's look at this year then now, after looking at last year. So who's doing what? Juniors last year proved to be really exciting the whole season. And if you weren't watching the juniors, not only can you watch it for free, which is one of the nice things about Discovery. I won't go into too many reasons of why I don't particularly like them. But I think the fact that they show the juniors for free is pretty good. I mean, and the racing's great. Considering I just sort of said, like, you don't ever find out much about the junior women, I think watching their racing was really good, and some of the talent coming through that we've got is amazing. And like, there's the Osgard sisters. I mean, Aletha Osgard's not going to be racing this year, not till next year. She's still a youth, but she's like nearly winning in some cases elite women's races in the States. So like, that's pretty cool. And like, Taylor Osgard was a first year junior, and she came 8th, I think, or 7th or 8th overall in the World Cup, and had a podium at Snowshoe or something like that. But I think the most exciting one coming out of the junior women's this year is Ellie Holzbosch, who is Crankworx beat all the elite women. I mean, there was the incredibly stacked field, but you know, likes of Jess Blewett, and oh no, Lee Ferguson wasn't there. Was Lee Ferguson there? But Jess Blewett, and like, you know, these people that are properly good. Pre-season is interesting in mountain biking because it's difficult to know what people are doing. There's lots of times where you sort of, over the years, you've gone like, oh, that person isn't doing well this year and they're not going to win. And then you get to the actual race itself and you're like, oh, they're doing really good and they're winning everything, you know. So talk a minute about Anne-Marie Piron, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised still to see Ellie Holzbosch podium in World Cups or this year, even winning them, because just how quick she is. Other people you've got in junior this year, you've still got Arise van Leuven and Sasha Ernest. Sasha obviously came straight into the World Cup and won Val di Sole by like a ridiculous amount of seconds, like 11, 12 seconds. But then she's sort of like, I don't know, it's a bit weird to see her win that race by so much, coming from a BMX background. So she's like a former world champion BMXer as a kid, to come into the juniors and then win one race for that, which then sort of didn't really do too much after that. And she's got a great riding style, and I mean, that's another thing about a lot of the junior women coming through, is their riding style is incredible and they're great on the jumps. The girl that's on Gen S this year, the name's escaping me for a minute, but her last name's Jensen, a Danish mountain biker, which I think is really strange. Like, how can you name any other Danish professional mountain bikers? I can't think of any. But she's brilliant on the jumps, and I think that's really cool to see. So yeah, really excited for that as well. The junior men's, I think, is possibly the most exciting category this whole year. So we've got 3 riders that I particularly think coming through that one of them definitely, but maybe 2 of them could challenge for fastest times of the day in the way of like Jackson Goldstein and Jordan Williams a few years ago. But like, it's going to be like Jackson Goldstein versus Jordan Williams on steroids, I think, particularly next year. So Asa Vermette, who has been injured in pre-season, so he crashed at the Tennessee National, I think. It was at the one at Ride Rock? Was it Wind Rock? One of the rocks. One of those races in Tennessee anyway. And had an injury, but he could be, apparently he's racing. So I was watching the Vital MTB podcast earlier, and apparently he's racing. So I don't know if he's going to be fit enough to race and race well. I think it's a wrist injury, and like, if it's a wrist injury and it's Fort William, yeah, good luck on that one. I mean, my arm pump has always been terrible, and I could get down a full run without my arms blowing up. Obviously these guys are way better than I am, but like, yeah, I think I'm really excited to see Asa race. Hopefully he can race properly, at least hopefully like by a couple of rounds in he'll be back up to speed. But I think this year is going to be Tyler Waite, who's the New Zealand youngster, one of the only people that's got to ride that Yeti prototype downhill bike, along with Richie Rood. You know, that bike is cool. Like, it feels very much, without the rails on it, a throwback to the old DH9, the old cool one with like the way the ton, but had like the rails that the suspension slid along. It doesn't have that obviously, but it kind of looks like that. It's kind of got that vibe, and like old school vibes and stuff is always really cool. So yeah, interested about with him. And then George Madeley as well. So George, I feel like no one's talking about George Madeley. This is a guy that is getting fastest times at UK national races and overall, like, or at least close to, and is like winning absolutely everything in the UK. Like, he had a massive win streak. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. But yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do. Obviously, home advantage, used to the track. You know, like in the UK, we get to ride that track at least at a national once a year, if not other races that they might put on there. But these days, it only seems to be once a year. And obviously, you can ride it whenever you want as well. And no doubt he'll be up there riding it and practicing it. But yeah, quite excited for those three. And they're all first year juniors. There's the Alran twins as well. I assume that's how you say that. It might be Alran. They're French. See how they get on. But then there's the second year juniors as well. So Chris Hauser, of course, who won Lenzerheide. So the first race of his junior career. And he's a great bike rider. He's got such a good style on a bike. And I think, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he can do this year. But yeah, excited for the juniors. Like I said, probably most excited for the juniors out of anything. Elites, so elite women, Valley Hole versus Nina is the big one, I think, for Fort William. We've obviously got some people as well that might come into that as well. Like, you know, Cami is back, Camille Blanche, which is really cool again, because she was injured most of last year when she was like so consistent and maybe could have taken the fights in the overall to Valley. But Nina's been really good at this track all the time. Like, she won 2 years ago, and I feel like she is good at these sort of trails, and that she's becoming like faster and faster all the time that we see her. So yeah, looking forward to that one. But then I think there's like quite a lot going on in the women's this year. So like Maureen Cabarrou did well at the end of last year. Miriam Nicole. I don't think we're going to be seeing Rachel. I feel like she did an Instagram post recently that basically sort of said like she's not retired, but like she's just enjoying riding her bike and not having to worry about racing. So I don't think we'll see Rachel. There's no Lenzerheide this year that she'll do, thank God, because I hate that track. As a spectator, it seems, it's an awful track. Get into that another time. But that's sort of like an easy track for her to come back and do, unless you fancy doing Leogan, because that's quite chill as well in a lot of ways, although I suppose the last was making it a bit more difficult this year, but anyway, these days anyway. The men's. Big story in the men's for me is whether Amaury Piron can come back, take the win, his first World Cup back after being injured all last year, and get the best men's win streak at Fort William with 4. So him and Greg have both got 3 in a row, and he's been absolutely unstoppable on that track for the last few years. Obviously didn't race World Champs, so couldn't win that one. Tracy Mosley's got 4 in the women's, so he'd equal that. But yeah, like, I feel like both 19 and 22, kind of coming into it, weren't convinced he was going to win, because I think 22 didn't have a really poor qualifying. 2019 was when he had the big like nail over the bars into the finish, which was incredible to watch. I was there for that one as well, and that was incredible to watch, like being there. But it was kind of like he felt like on 2019 he was on the back foot to Bruni, and then he suddenly like stepped out for Fort William, and he's just so good at that track. And that's why we love Piron. He's just like 100% into everything, and just, you know, takes it to the limit, which you kind of got to do on Fort William. Like, you look at people that have won Fort William in the past, and that's what they've done. Like, it doesn't always reward the smoothest rider. Sometimes it rewards the people that just go all out. There's a lot going on in the men's this year, though. I think there's so many variables. I think there's the juniors coming up, like Ryan Pinkerton, Bodie Kuhn, who are going to really be looking to challenge. I think Bodie Kuhn talked about in that the Trek video that they made recently about setting his standards like really high for what he wants to achieve, and looking to achieve like top 10s and that in the first year of junior, and that's really difficult to do. You know, like, you look at what Jackson did last year, and Jackson's like a one-off. Like, you don't get that happening all the time. We've seen people before come out of juniors that are like smoking everyone in juniors. You know, look at someone like Thibaut de Prada, like comfortably won both World Cup ovals. Didn't win any world champs as a junior, but won both World Cup ovals, I'm pretty sure, fairly convincingly. And he came in with speed, but he didn't come in with, you know, the knack to win World Cups. And you could argue still hasn't necessarily had that. He's got 2, but both rain affected. So he still had to win them. There's nothing against him. Like, he still had to win them. But yeah, there's like definitely a little asterisk next to his name for both of those wins. So, but I mean, that you can't argue as well, like what he was doing at Val d'Isole last year when he had like the wildest run ever, where he was like taking both his hands off and shaking them behind his back over that little bridge before going to the next section. It's pretty cool. But yeah, lots of team changes, so I think that's going to have a big effect on who does what. There's people still be getting used to their bikes. I mean, there's some in the women's as well. You could argue Valley jumping on a YT instead of a Trek, but depends what their new bike's going to be like. I believe from what I've heard from stuff, it's pretty much the same. I don't quite know what they've done. I don't think they've gone for a high pivot, because if you watch some of like the pros videos, you see like Jack Moyer's one, they haven't got that area covered up. And it's you can't really cover that up anyway, and you'd be able to see it like the Canyon. You can see it's got a high, then you can see it's got a high pivot. They mentioned the fact that the YT stuck to the ground quite well, so just a more progressive suspension platform, maybe, I assume. Like if it sticks to the ground quite well, it's going to be more progressive. It's going to be going away from linear, but I'm pretty sure they've got 4-bar anyway. I don't think they're single pivot. Maybe they were single pivot, I don't know. But yeah, anyway, back to the men's. There's things like, you know, there's lots of people that potentially win their first World Cups, like Ronan Dunn. But lots of people always say this, and I always disagree with it, and I probably, I don't know if I should or not, because these are probably people that know more than me, but I've heard people saying like things before, anyone in the top 15 can win a World Cup. I don't think that's, at the men's, I don't think that's true. I think that last little step to take to winning the World Cup is quite a big step that I think people underestimate, because people have said that for years, and then we get the same World Cup winners all the time. We get like odd ones every now and again, like Ocean O'Callaghan last year, but you look at who won World Cups last year in the men's, you know, it was people that had been knocking on the door for a while or had already won one, or like Jackson's not an anomaly, but like, you know, like someone like that you kind of you think is capable of winning one anyway, and like considering that he was getting fastest times in the juniors along with Jordan, and again Jordan winning one, like, it was really good, but it wasn't like completely freakish. It was so sick. Like I can remember like sitting on the sofa and being like, I can't believe that this is about to happen, especially that he got one over on Jackson and winning one before him. But yeah, I think Bruni I always count out a fault with him, even though I just said he probably would have won World Champs, but I think Bruni is a different person at World Champs. So I think you won't necessarily see him on the top of the box. You might see him on the podium. I haven't got to my predictions yet. I'm going to make some predictions in a minute, and I really don't know the answers about who's going to win what. So, excuse me. But I think, yeah. Well, let's move on to predictions now then, okay, as we started talking about it. I think there's so many variables that it's pretty much impossible to decide right now who's going to do what. I think we should just call this section like hedging my bets, because I don't know. I'm going to not lay my hat down on any particular thing. I'm just going to literally say a load of different stuff and see who I think is going to win. So, junior women, I am going to go against my better judgment and say Arise van Leuven is going to take the win. I'd like, further into the season, we'll do full podiums for these. So we'll do top 3 for juniors and we'll do top 5 for elites. But for a minute, I'm going to just go for winners, and maybe if I think I know who's going to be on the podium. But I'm going to suggest that Arise van Leuven is going to take the the junior women's, and that we might see Ellie Holsbosch on the podium with. I've done a podium here, so okay. Go on then, let's do this then. Ellie Holsbosch third, second place. Oh, I don't know who to guess. Go on, let's say Slash it as second, and Arise van Leuven first. Junior men, I am going to put George Madeley first, This is probably where I find out that he's not a junior, but I'm pretty sure he's a junior this year, and he's not a youth. I'm almost certain he is. I'm sure I looked at his results from Rio the National a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to put George Bailey in first. I'm going to go for it, say a Brit top of the podium, on a track he's going to know fairly well. Let's put Chris Hauser second, and then we're going to put Tyler Waite in third. Let's go that way around. Women's, Nina for the win. And I can't decide on who the others. I can't do a top 5 yet. Definitely can't do. Let's just say Nina for the win. Valley will be there somewhere. Cami will be there somewhere. Miriam, Nicole maybe. And Marine. Let's say those 5 will be somewhere on the podium, but I think Nina's going to take the win. Men's. One person I just realised I completely forgot to mention in talking about the men's was Lucky Stevens McNabb, who absolutely smashed everyone at Crankworks. Obviously, like New Zealander on New Zealand soil, so that makes a bit of a difference. But he's been winning absolutely everything he's raced in this year. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm going to put Pierre on top of the podium. I'm going to do what I do with the women's. I'm going to say who I think is going to win, and then put people on the podium. I think we'll be on the podium. So Piron, I think he's going to win. I think he's going to be super hungry to win the race. I think he's going to really want it this year. And this one, and prove what he can do coming back from an injury. So yeah, him number 1. Second, oh no, I wasn't going to do that. I was just going to guess. I think Manal might be on the podium. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Manal's a top 5 for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if he won. I think he's got new energy on that new bike, but there's part of me that thinks he's got new energy on the new bike and is going to take the win or like get a podium, and there's part of me that thinks he's kind of like winding it down and looking at focusing on other stuff and like development and helping out Gracie and helping out Lucas Cruz. I think he's the other person on that team. I'm pretty sure it's Lucas Cruz. I could be completely wrong. So yeah, but he'll be, if he's racing, he's going to try and take the win, isn't he? I know he wants to win world champs at home in Andorra, so I think he'll be trying to push and try and do some interesting stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't count him out of the podium. Same with Bruni, even though it's a track he doesn't like. Dakota Norton, that seems like the sort of track that Dakota Norton would be good at, and he's rejuvenating on a new ride, so let's stick him there as well. And who else are we going to stick on the podium? Let's stick up another person that we think might be there or thereabouts. Vergier. I'd like to see Ronan Dunn on the podium at the first round, but I don't think we will. If I'm wrong, I'm going to put this clip of me saying that he's not going to get on the podium in the in the final show of the analysis of the weekend. So yeah, that's my predictions. That's the end of the video. I've talked for half an hour, which is probably way too long. I was hoping to keep these like 10 minutes. So yeah, we'll aim for half an hour next time. The idea of the semi-final rundown, that it'll literally be like a super quick video. And I'm not going to edit this for a minute, partly because I know I'm going to have to sit through half an hour of editing, and I just want to get this out of here. So it's going to be unedited for a minute. And hopefully the quality of the filming, the quality of everything goes up, because hopefully these will be good and people will like them. So if you do like it, please like and subscribe. And yeah, thanks. See you in a couple of days. Enjoy the racing.